Okay, Lori, we are now recording.
Hi, folks. Welcome to this meeting of the Amherst Energy and Climate Action Committee. Today, we are going to have a presentation about Valley Bike first up on the agenda, and I'm going to hand this over to Stephanie to introduce our Valley Bike guest.
Great. Thank you so much, Lori. Really want to thank Liat Perlman from Drop Mobility, who is the operator of the Valley Bike program and network for all the communities. So we've been really lucky to be working with them. I won't say too much. I just want to thank Liat for taking the time to do this information session for us. And we will ask people if you have questions at the end of the presentation to please electronically raise your hand and I will allow you to speak. Then you can ask Liat your questions. So with that, I will hand it over to Liat.
Amazing. Am I able to share my screen, Stephanie?
You may, yes.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name's Liat. I'm super happy to be here and be presenting. So as Stephanie said, lovely introduction. Thank you. I work for Drop Mobility, which is the operator of Valley Bike. So you see these bikes here. Those are our equipment. We have all the technology and all the people on the ground that help like service the bikes and change the batteries. So just a little bit of overview for what Valley Bike is. It's an electric pedal assist bike share network that services all the residents and visitors of all over Pioneer Valley, from Springfield to Amherst to Holyoke. We're all over. And this is like a little bit of a map. It's from our website, but you can also go on our app, download our app, and see very easily what stations that the bikes have that are close to you, and kind of see like what's available. And it's a very easy way to, map out your route using our bikes. So currently we're transitioning. We had taken over a previous system that had closed down, and we had put some of our own new equipment into the system, but we're currently in the process of transitioning all of that older equipment into our newer equipment. So this picture is our newer bikes. And then we aim to have about 400 to 500 of those drop bikes deployed by spring of 2026. That's the goal. No promises, but we're working on it, and it'll be great because I love riding the drop bikes. They're great. Very easy. And what pedal assist means is that like the faster you pedal, the faster the bike goes. So it's not a throttle. You can't like push a button and then you just kind of go, if that makes sense. If you've ever seen the bikes that like some delivery drivers drive around with where they're not pedaling at all, these ones you have to pedal. And a lot of people are more comfortable with that. So with that little overview, I'll get into how our membership works. We have a few options, but you can pay as you go. Just download the app, use it one time, and then it's 25 cents a minute. There's an unlock fee, or you can have a monthly membership, which a lot of our users in Pioneer Valley opt for because it makes a lot more sense if you're utilizing our bikes as a regular part of your commute. There's also a lot of students in the area, so we tend to do student memberships and deals with colleges and things like that. So the monthly membership is very popular. It's super easy. Very few steps on the app to download and get. We do promotions all the time. If you follow us on Instagram, you'll see those often. And then there's another way you can get a membership, which is through an equity membership. And these are, if you automatically are qualified for things like SNAP, Medicaid, something else, you automatically qualify for equity membership, which is only $4 a month. You get 60 minutes of free ride time. It's 10 cents a minute for ride time after that. But this is great. We have this Drop Mobility operates bike share all around the country. So we have this equity membership in a lot of our markets. It works great. And if you have any questions about it, the support@valleybike.org email is monitored all the time and can help you with that. So we make it super easy that you can, have a membership for whatever you need, whether that's pay as you go, a monthly membership, an equity membership. It's all possible. And with that, I'll go to some of our sponsorship opportunities. So this is an interesting system where we have these kiosks that are near a lot of our bike stations that we can put advertisements in, we can put artwork in, and we also have options to brand like the bikes, the baskets, all those things. But I'll start from the top. If you want, we have an app that we use that I was describing, but you can be a digital sponsor on the app. We have a banner where we can put announcements on. Sometimes I use that for community events or different promotions that we do, but sometimes we work with sponsors if they want to, get the word out, use it for advertising. It's a great way. It's very community oriented because the only people seeing the ad are the ones already on the app. So chances are they live or are visiting the area. You can also sponsor an existing station, which looks like some sort of monetary, sponsorship for the donation for the station to either house a certain amount of bikes at a time, put your branding on the station. Same with sponsoring a new station. You could also sponsor a new station by adding more bikes to the system. This is, again, a very community-oriented system. So we often talk to different neighborhoods or towns that are looking to expand or want a station nearby about what it would look like to put up racks or bring a few more bikes. And we're very flexible as long as it's within the service area, which you can see on our app and on the map that I was showing you earlier from our website. And then if you wanted, we also have the option for title sponsorship. So this would be, a bigger business in the area that wants to do something for, the community. One of our other bike share around the country, we partner with Blue Shield Blue Cross, and they, sponsor the entire bike share system, which is awesome. But we also do other types of sponsorships, which we've done some in the area, but we can do bulk membership purchases for employees. So if your business wants to purchase, between 10 and 100 or maybe even more than that memberships for your employees at a certain price, we do a discount for that, which is great for kind of working towards a greener commute or any sustainability goals that your organization or firm might have. We also, like I was saying earlier, have these huge kiosks that are lit up and they're great. And on one side, there's a map, and then the other side, we can put advertising, we can put art, anything like that. Those are at most of our stations, like with our bikes. And then we also sponsor events. So you might have seen us table around at various things like the Amherst Block Party or the Holyoke Mayoral Ride we just did a few weeks ago. But if you want to partner with us for an event and, sponsor bikes or just, free ride minutes for your organization or do a community ride with your company or things like that, we do those all the time. So if you're interested in any sponsorship opportunities or also had questions about membership or anything that I can answer, my email's at the bottom here. It's just liat@dropmobility.com. There's also an email on the website if you don't remember this one. It's collaborate@valley-bike.org, I think. You'll find it at the bottom of the website. So if I'm misspeaking, I'm sorry. But I also monitor that inbox so I can answer you as well there. But yeah, we're very flexible. We love Pioneer Valley. I love to visit when I can, and it's been a really fun time. And I'm excited to really expand with all the new drop equipment starting, now through the spring. I think it'll be awesome. So hopefully that was a good overview. But yeah, again, thank you so much for having me. I will stop sharing my screen and I can answer questions if anyone has.
So I have some questions, but before we ask questions within ECAC, how about we see if our participants have any questions? We do have at least one participant. So if there's a question, please raise your hand and we'll bring you into the meeting. If not, I have a couple of questions I can start with. So my first question that pops into my mind is, at 25 cents a minute, when does a ride end? Do you have to return the bike to a kiosk or can
Yes.
you leave it anywhere?
You have to park it within one of our hubs. It's hub to hub. Yeah, you can't leave it on the street.
Okay, yeah, that's different than in a lot of big cities where, of course, everything is more compact and you could basically leave the bike or the scooter anywhere and somebody will pick it up at the end of the day and plug it back in. But I guess
Yes.
in the Valley, that's not really doable. It's much bigger area than, say, DC or.
Yeah.
Okay. The other question I had is the slide that had the eligibility for financial aid, essentially for lower cost. The slide was very tiny and not easy to read. There's presumably a website.
Yes, it's on the website. I was just kind of showing that the information is there. But
Right.
yes, you can use the website, click through.
So if one Googles the valleybike.org website,
Yes.
it looks like there is an equity membership and a button that says, see if I qualify under pricing, which is where folks would go.
Yes.
Okay. So it is important to have a map of those hubs, which I think was there somewhere.
There's one all the way at the bottom of the website, but it's a lot easier to see on an app on your phone.
On the app.
So you can zoom in and see what the hubs near you are.
Right, okay. Are there other questions from either participants or the committee members?
I have a question. So I don't know if for like Lori's questions about like parking the bicycles and so on. Like if I'm parking it like temporarily, like I can just, does it have a lock on it there, or is like, does it have to be the hub? I'll go.
You should be able to pause a trip. I'm not sure exactly for how long, but when you plug it back into a hub, you lock it. Like there's a lock on the bike. So you
Oh,
will end your trip by locking it.
okay. So like for instance, if I'm going for a Target or whatever, and they don't have a hub there, and I'm getting some kind of food, so like I just park there, but it's not locked. It's just like there and
I don't want to misspeak because some of our systems are different. You should be able to pause, but this is a good question for the support at valleybike.org email.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Can you lock it temporarily? Does it pause your ride, or does it keep charging you until you get to a hub? But I think locking it, if you're just making a quick stop somewhere, you want to be able to lock it.
I had a question. Do you ever reserve it in advance or anything like that? Or I imagine sometimes maybe like there would be no bikes available at the station that you want to use it at. Is there a way to know that?
You can't reserve it in advance. You can look on the app to see if there are bikes at your station, but our team does a really good job at rebalancing the bikes. Like we don't really get complaints of people not having bikes at a station. So the batteries inside the bikes are swappable. So they really never dip below, I would say 60% battery. Like it's a non-issue as of right now.
Thank you.
What if you show up at a hub and all the spots are taken and you want to leave the bike there?
You shouldn't have that issue.
You shouldn't, because they're rebalancing them.
Yeah.
Leah,
And that's like, yeah.
I can help with that one actually, because that came up at a recent meeting.
Oh,
Sorry,
okay.
that's okay.
No, yeah.
So as long as you lock the bike somewhere around where that hub is, so nearby, if there's a pole or something that you can lock it to nearby, or you can double up on the new racks are different than the docks where you had to actually click the bike in to charge it. Now it's more of a regular bicycle stand. So you'd be able to face it in the opposite direction and lock it to that stand. You could put multiple bikes on the stand.
So it sounds
Yeah.
like the bike has a lock on it somehow.
Yes, that's good clarification, Stephanie. Thank you.
Sure,
The
you're welcome.
docking station, like where you would have to push the bike into like over a little lip and like lock it, we just have racks. So the lock is just a wire. And so, yeah, you can double up the bikes if necessary. Again, if there's a pole nearby, but as long as you're within, like you'll see a little box on the app. And as long as you're within that area, it's okay.
It's great that there's this equity program. I wonder if UMass participates in anything for the or any of the colleges participate in any sort of a deal for their students to encourage them to use the bikes. Is anyone doing that?
We've talked to all of the colleges. We work with someone at UMass on a pretty regular basis. It's kind of a case by case basis.
We did have at the beginning the sort of the relaunch, if you will, of the academic year. There was a discount for students to encourage membership. So there was a period of time where they could get a discounted membership. I don't know if it's still being offered now, but I know Ezra, often Ezra Small often works with Drop Mobility to see if they can offer something for the students for a discount.
All right, another question is the slides that you had, are they available on the website anywhere?
No, I just made these, but I can send them to Stephanie.
If you
yeah.
could, Leah, and then I can add them to the packet and they'll be available online.
Yeah, of course.
Great, thank you so much. They'll be in the ECAC packet for today's meeting.
Good. Other questions? I think this is great. I know in my daughter is a huge fan of the bikes and mostly the bikes, also the scooters that are all over DC. Been using them for a long time. I appreciate the fact that it's harder to do in a spread out valley like we're in, and I'm really glad that we have this sort of thing.
So our attendee does have a question, so I'm going to let Gabor in.
Good.
So Gabor, you can go ahead and unmute and ask your question or make your comment.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Liat, for showing the membership and the affordable program, which I was aware of. That was really good, interesting. I have a more technical question. My experience with the old bicycles, which I think are similar to the new ones, is that you either pedal and get assistance by the electric, or you stop pedaling because you sped up now, and then the assistance stop also. So I found myself speeding up and slowing down, speeding up and slowing down. Is there a remedy against that in the new bikes?
I would say I'm not 100% sure how to answer your question. I think, yeah, I mean, I think the idea is that if you're stopping pedaling, it's not going to assist you anymore. I will say I've ridden our bikes often and I have not experienced that issue. So hopefully as we get some of the more newer equipment in, the drop equipment, you'll have less of an issue. But that is how the pedal assist bikes work. Like you can't stay at a consistent pace as if it was a throttle and you don't pedal at all.
Right. But to make it more exact, what I'm asking is that the old bicycles had only one speed. So I quickly sped out of the comfortable pedaling range. And I wonder if the new bicycles have some kind of a transient gear, like multiple gears or something, to help me pedal on flat, uphill, and maybe downhill, and not pedal too quickly, have to pedal too quickly, or, and then stop pedaling because it's too uncomfortable pedaling, 180 circulations a minute.
Yeah.
I don't want to misspeak, but I think that it's just like I think it goes up to 16 miles an hour and it's just based on your pedaling. I'm not sure there's a way to.
No, I think the question is, does it have any gears? Do the new bikes have gears?
No.
It's just one speed, cruiser style bike, that's it.
Yes.
So you're probably going to have the same exact problem, unfortunately.
I think that, and I've ridden the bikes as well, Gabor, and I think it's also, you kind of have to ride them differently. I think you just have to find your own rhythm that works with the speed, and not pedal too hard. I think that's the thing. If you, I know the thing that sort of caught me by surprise the first time I rode one of these bikes is just that the minute you get on and you push your foot forward to start pedaling, it goes really far. So that's a little unnerving to realize that you have that assist. So I think it's just a matter of finding a rhythm with it, because I know I rode them a bit, and it could also be that maybe the bikes, later the drop mobility bikes, I'm sorry, not the drop mobility bikes, the Bowigan bikes, were definitely, as they aged, they were sort of losing some of their functionality. So I don't know at which point you were riding them and had this issue, but it could be with the Bowigan bikes. They were just not working properly anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that could be it. And I have one more question, which I already asked, I think, at some point, but I forgot your answer. So I just ask it again. Is it a possibility, or are there plans to use these bikes without a cell phone?
Not that you can't, unfortunately, use them without a cell phone right now. You have to unlock it and lock it through a QR code on the top of the bikes.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Gabor, and thank you, Liat. Any other questions? Anyone? If not, then we will thank Liat again and proceed with the rest of the ECAC meeting. Participants are welcome to stay and listen, but need not if you're not interested. So
thank you, Stephanie. Yeah. I'll send you the slides right now. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you so much, Liat.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, and with that, we have Emily taking notes. The first thing we do at these meetings is always approve the minutes from last time. Let me just bring my notes up here. Mhm. Oops, that's the wrong date. What's going on here? Oh, there we go. So the first thing we're going to do is review the minutes, which I will bring up. I have them here from the last meeting. I will share my slide, and then if there are participants, we take comments. Minutes, share. All right, I think. Good. So these are the minutes from last time. I'll just scroll through them slowly. I don't think I had any changes. Andrew, I'm sorry, I just did this like 10 minutes before the meeting.
I saw. Thank you. I will reach out. And I think we're going to hear more about the DOER energy siting and permitting regulations again today. Thank you, Steve. And then we finished last time with a presentation and updates. If there's a move to accept the minutes and a second, we can vote on them. I move to accept the minutes.
Thank you, Andrew. To a second.
I second.
Thanks, Emily. And I will stop sharing.
Okay, and if you can make sure your audio is on, we need a vocal vote. Goldner,
Yes.
Allison,
Yes.
Leinung,
Yes.
Tanaka,
Yes.
Roof,
Yes.
Door.
Yes.
All right. Minutes are approved. Thank you.
Okay, so if we have any, I don't think we have any attendees, so that makes the comments from the public easy. No public comment for the first part of the meeting anyway. And we move on, and Tony is not here. That's too bad, because the next thing on the agenda is the Elevate event, which was going to be on a Thursday. I thought sometime this fall, or did we put it off? It's getting a little late, so we will skip that, item 4 on the agenda, and go right to the education series planning. So are there any updates on that? There were, I think Steve was going to reach out to PV Squared.
I did reach out to PV Squared last month, and they requested that we wait just a little while longer.
Oh, right.
They were sort of frantically busy dealing with customers frantic to get their systems installed before the credits expire at the end of the year.
Right.
So I
Right.
think I will follow up with them in a bit, but probably be scheduling something like that educational event for early this winter, 2026.
Right. Okay, and Let me just find something. Here's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the spreadsheet that we had made into a PDF last time. So I think heading for something about solar early next year would be great. We also talked about demystifying community solar. And I think I was going to try to work on that, maybe with some help from Stephanie. Did you have an idea, Stephanie, of who to talk to about that?
I have a network of folks. It kind of fell off my radar and I haven't followed up, but I will.
That's fine. Let me go ahead and share this sheet to jog everybody's memory. This is what we worked on last time. This is the live version of it that we bring up during. I can make another PDF for inclusion in the folder in the packet. But this is where we were last time. Can you guys all see that?
Yep.
Just individual actions. Let's see. I just put Andrew in touch with Darcy, and I don't remember who Laura McLeod is, but I asked Darcy if there was anybody else working on Zero Waste Amherst anymore, if that group still existed, and if so, who else we should be talking to, or Andrew should be talking to.
I do know Laura. If you want me to connect Laura and Andrew, I can easily do that.
Who
That'd
is
be great.
what is her role?
Yeah.
She's just another, well, I shouldn't say just another. She is a community activist who
Cool.
is working on this issue.
That would be great to connect to her as well.
Sure,
Um,
I'll connect you too. I'll do that this evening.
Yeah. On this, if we're talking about this, I saw that we did, as a town, just sign a consultant to work on the the process to like hire a town-wide service for this, which is a necessary step in this process. And I know that had taken a while. So I did see that was good forward momentum.
How did you find out about that? I hadn't heard about that. Was it?
There was a summary of a town meeting from I think the 16th that and Paul Bachman said that they had hired a consultant for this. So that's good.
Cool. Maybe we could have that consultant come and chat with
That would be cool. Yeah, I can ask Darcy if that's possible.
Well, Darcy
Was the
probably wouldn't be the one to
Town
ask.
hiring the consultant,
Oh.
or was the activist group? I would think the town.
I think, yeah, no, the town, I think there was a necessary step for the town to hire a consultant in order to officially get the process going to set up a plan to have the town do a contract rather than individual contracts with a trash pickup.
Okay, if it's the town, then you should go through me to make sure the correct staff
Okay.
person is coordinating, because it's always a desire to have a consultant come talk to the group, but that's money. So
Got it.
Yeah,
they
yeah,
have
yeah.
a limited budget. So I'll
I'll
what we
send you
could
an
do
email.
is, we could
Yeah.
get the staff person who may be working with that consultant
Mhm.
to talk to the group.
That sounds great.
Okay, I'll make a note that the town has hired a consultant. Yeah, because Darcy and Laura would be with an outside, probably with Zero Waste Amherst is what they used to call themselves. I don't know if they still call
Yep.
themselves that or not. A consultant. And into something about, yeah, just see if maybe the consultant might be free. That's definitely something, if they're gonna hire a consultant, they're gonna need to get buy-in from the town if they do anything, right? So
Mhm.
at some point, the whole education and outreach thing will be important if they actually do this.
Yeah, I'll find the exact the primary source for this. I'll find the notes.
Okay, so we've got solar. I think these are probably, I'm gonna make a I'm gonna just fill these three in yellow because I think these are the three that we might, I'll work on this one. Steve's working on that one. Andrew and Stephanie will work on this one.
Mhm.
Is there anything else that anybody else wants to think about? I think what we need to make these work is somebody to make it theirs, right? Oh, here we got, what are the local colleges doing came up last time. That would be interesting. You know, there is a very interesting article with Laura Drauker's name on it that came out of Smith College. There's a particular person at Smith College who wrote about what colleges are doing. You know about that, Steve?
Yes, I do. That's Alex Barron at
Right.
Smith College, and has written about what a number of the colleges have done to make their claims of being net carbon neutral. And basically pointing out that almost all institutions are doing it through buying carbon offsets and RECs. And in many cases, well, not in many cases, at least in some cases, their emissions are actually increasing.
Yes.
But it's easy to offset those emissions with RECs and carbon offsets. And their argument is sort of like, well, let's see if we can move beyond that method of carbon accounting, carbon neutrality by carbon accounting, and
Right.
move into plans where actual emissions reductions can be made to happen. And then Smith is doing that with their big campus-wide geothermal network, as is Mount Holyoke College, as is Amherst College.
Yeah. UMass is the local holdout, and it's because of the cogeneration plant that they have. And that seems to be a common theme among all big universities that have cogeneration plants. They burn fuel and they don't know how to get out of that cycle, right? Some of them are burning what they call renewable fuels. Some of them are buying offsets. But that's where all the big offsets. University of Maryland claims to be net zero, which is infuriating because all they're doing is buying RECs for wind farms in Texas.
I should mention that these institutions that are going with campus-wide geothermal heat pump systems, they're going to have to find clean, renewable electricity to reduce their carbon emissions. If they don't have clean energy for that, then there's going to be emissions associated with it. Probably less than what they're doing now, but there'll still be significant emissions. And last I checked, they did not have strategies or plans for making sure there's enough of clean electricity in 10 or 15 years when the demand for electricity is going to be maybe twice as high as what it is now.
Especially now with this federal administration killing so many clean energy projects, this is going to be a problem. This is also why, UMass made this promise to decarbonize by 2032, which they might have actually done under the previous chancellor, but that would have meant converting to low temperature hot water and using electricity off the grid, which would actually have increased their CO2 outputs because the cogeneration plant is so efficient that using electricity off the grid is worse. So if they were to change over tomorrow, they would actually bring their emissions up. So this is the problem for all of these big universities, right? None of them want to commit to taking down their cogeneration plants. And that's part of the reason why. The other part is just it's so expensive. Probably the bigger part. All right, so that's also something to think about. This Alex Barron.
Yeah, I mean, if there was interest, we might be able to get somebody from Smith or Amherst or Mount Holyoke to talk about their campus-wide geothermal systems.
Yeah. There's been talk about getting folks at UMass to bring a panel of people in, including someone like Alex Barron, and maybe from the local colleges, maybe for some larger universities. The problem is finding larger universities that have good ideas. There just aren't any.
I was wondering, can I also help with that project or something? Because, I mean, since I'm a student, so it's obviously easier for me to find whatever Amherst College, and also have some, because I'm also in student government, so I do have some connections with like all the 5 college sustainability people in some sense. I think can maybe put in use in this case, but
So I have the three of you working on that. Now, remember that because of the open meeting laws, we can't do anything outside of these meetings. That if at some point one of you wants to take responsibility for this, for a panel or some sort of discussion, some sort of an event around what local colleges are doing, that one person could take input from the others, but couldn't have any conversations back and forth until the meeting, unless you wanted to set up a separate public meeting just for that little subcommittee to meet. So we can't have subcommittees and meeting in private. That's just a reminder.
Lori, I just raised my hand, but
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to say how this can work is that one of those three people could be the one who is kind of spearheading it. It's the point person. So if you draft something or you have a conversation, the other two can't officially be named. Otherwise, it is a subcommittee.
Right.
So if one person is in charge, you can reach out to the others, but you can't officially be named as part of a committee. It just has to be one person.
You can ask for input.
And you
Steve?
can ask for input.
I was just going to ask Tatsuya if he knows Wes Drips, who is, I think, a sustainability director at Amherst College.
yep, I am very familiar. I meet with him like bi-weekly or weekly.
Oh,
So.
okay, excellent. Oh, good, good. Yeah, he's an old friend. He's actually, we did geology together way back before he came to Amherst College.
What's his
Oh.
name? Wes?
Actually, he was a geology graduate from Amherst College a
Mhm.
couple of decades ago, had a great career in geology, and then came back to Amherst College as the sustainability director.
And his name is Wes. What's his last
Wes
name?
Drips.
DRIPPS.
At Amherst. Okay, we also mentioned Alex Barron. I want to get a few names in here of people that we might be interested in inviting or talking to. I think Barron has 2 R's, right?
Yes, I believe so.
Those are small.
Ezra, I would be
Oh, yeah.
surprised if Ezra would do it, but Ezra? I'd be surprised if you were allowed to do it.
He's
but
hard to pin down. He's so busy.
He's really
He
busy.
has also been told not to talk to certain people. So
Ah,
I think that's part of the issue, because when I tried to contact him a while back, I was told I was not allowed to, he was not allowed to speak to me. I was only allowed to speak to Tillman Wolf, who we
wow.
do not want to invite.
Well, I think that for the purposes of what we're trying to do here, we're just trying to get information about what the colleges and the university are doing. So
He might be interested in talking about that if he has time.
if he has time.
Yep. So there are some possibilities.
I wish I could tell you all the things that Hampshire College is doing.
What?
Well, we're not able to do much right now,
Oh.
other than small
Oh.
scale efficiency improvements.
You guys already have done a lot, right? I mean,
We have, with the large ground mount solar, we've done a lot. We're not big emissions. We're actually relatively low emissions, even on a per capita basis.
mhm.
But no, we're not spending a few $100 million on a campus-wide geothermal heating system.
I think they're now calling it 4 billion at UMass, any rate. All right, good. So we'll just keep plugging away at these things. At this point, I think all of these are going to have to be for the spring. It's getting to be that time of year. But I think January, February, late January, February, March are good times to hold these sorts of events. People are indoors, it's dark at this time of night. No, nothing better to do. Come to an ECAC meeting. All right, so shall we move on from there? Okay, so whoops, let me stop sharing. Okay, annual report, town manager goals. Let me bring up something else to share. So I'm just getting started on this, and I wanted to make sure everybody here sort of knew what was going on and has a chance for some input. So I sent around, you should have all gotten copies of the last year's annual report, which I'm just going to edit to make this year's. The introduction, these first 3 paragraphs are sort of boilerplate. You know, just an introduction to ECAC, to the pointing people to the CARP, mentioning that that's what we're following in trying to decarbonize Amherst town. So I might change a few little words here. I need to talk to Stephanie. You and I still need to talk about this too, about what your priorities are for the next year. And maybe we can talk about that a little bit now. Last year we talked, we said a little bit about barriers. What I did basically though in this report, there are 5 things we're supposed to report on. There's 5, the CARP, the ECAC, our charge requires an annual report be prepared and submitted to the council. And per that charge, the report should include these 5 things. Okay. And these are pretty much things covered by the CARP, right? So what I did is I made a little report in each of these 5 sections. I just structured it this way. You know, these are the 5 things that we're supposed to report on. Some of them are directly in the CARP. There's also strategic goals. You know, there's the overall goals and there's strategic things to do. There's a nice chart in the, I think it's in the CARP, or maybe someone else put it together afterwards. I don't remember. That has, I think it's in the CARP at the end, that has all of the 5 sectors in the CARP: buildings, renewable energy, land use and natural systems, and transportation and building infrastructure. I think that's it, right? There was governance in there somewhere. Did I say that already? Oh, governance was in there. Maybe that was here. Maybe it's just this. Okay, so these are these sectors of the CARP, and each of those had specific targets in it, strategies and targets, right? So I basically went through them and made a little note about where we were on all of them. Just a little, done, underway, this changed, this is no longer reasonable, things like that. So I was just going to go through that again. And if in looking at this, especially if you've been on the CARP, on ECAC in the last year, if you could go through this list quickly and just, if you see things that have been done, that you want to make sure are accounted for somewhere in here, or something that you worked on in the last year, make sure I get a little note. Just send me a little note, and I'll incorporate them. So that's the biggest part of this, is just going through this list at the bottom. And I won't go through it now. You can look at it on your own, but it's, this big long list. I think it's 3 pages, 1, 2, 2.5 pages of all the different things that we're working on at any one time, that we're thinking about as we move forward. There's also this, which was the roadmap. I think I just put this in because it's basically these 5 things again, except these are if you look in here, the table above this colorful chart is just the colorful chart with more stuff in it. Although I don't know where governance went. Did I leave governance out? I didn't put it in here. That's interesting. Because under buildings, hang on, if I go back down here, buildings.
Governance wasn't really a section that you easily had. I don't remember the things that were in it specifically off the top of my head, but they weren't necessarily ECAC action items. Not everything in here is really specific to ECAC in the CARP. Things are just basically specific to the town actions that we want to see happen. But for some things, there might be other departments that aren't don't necessarily include me either.
Okay. But for the rest of them, like under buildings, continue to lead on affordable action. If you look up here, what you'll see is 1.1, continue to lead on affordable housing. And these were the specific actions right? That that the town is supposed to be doing. So these are things that I feel like ECAC should be, keeping an eye on, keeping tabs on, and trying to push forward, right? The things in the CARP. And then on top of that, so there's the progress toward climate action goals, that's the CARP. And then there are these other 4 things we're supposed to report on, which I just made short paragraphs about each, mostly just a set of bullets. What did we do under measures taken to reduce emissions and build resilience? Some things that have happened in the last year that are new is Valley Green Energy was scheduled to go online last year. Now it's there. And it would be interesting maybe to find out from Stephanie what percentage of the town is signed up, for example, if we can figure that out, and maybe put that in a report. It might be nice to know. So that's something I think, Stephanie, you and I can talk about some of these offline
Yeah, I think you and I will have to collaborate.
and just go through this, which is what we did last year.
Mhm.
So after that's written, and maybe even before it's written, so these are I think last year, I think we're doing another greenhouse gas inventory, right? That's coming up in the next year. if I remember
Yes,
right.
I'm trying to I need to write my application for UNH Sustainability Institute Fellow.
Right,
So
right.
that's one of the things I'm going to be working on.
So there's stuff like that. And then on top of that, I usually like to do it when we're done with this, but I think we are running just a little late, so we should probably just talk about it. Okay, so what do we need the town manager? We're always asked this time of year to have input on the town manager goals. And last year, we suggested a bunch of stuff in each of those 5 areas again, in each of the building energy, renewable energy. I went through the 5 areas and thought, okay, well, what should the goals be in each of those areas? And we're always told to compress, because very little of this is actually going to get in there. I think it's important we have some input. I don't expect all of it to get into the town manager goals, right? We should make it as concise as we can, but just realize it's not all going to get in, and that's fine. This is what actually made it in, some of which looks a little like this and a lot of which doesn't. But a lot of it is, hiding in here somewhere. Right, update the capital inventory to include criteria and priorities for the transition of municipal buildings, vehicles, and equipment away from fossil fuels. Well, that's sort of, it's in here as far as prioritizing energy needs and opportunities, right? It's sort of hiding in here, which is fine. Seek climate leader, I think that was in here. I don't remember if that was in here or not. We certainly talked about this. It should have been in there if it wasn't. We are now a climate leader community, right, Stephanie? That happened this year.
That happened this year. If these goals, which I believe came from the CARP, the
Mhm.
Climate Leader Community Program didn't exist when the CARP was written.
Right,
So
right.
that was a big goal, but we are,
Yeah.
we've achieved that designation.
Yeah, the things don't have to be, I mean, the CARP isn't that specific, right? It's to keep seeking money and moving forward, and something like that certainly fits into to reaching the goals
Right.
in the CARP. The bylaw, I think, was in there. That's there. Then there's one thing that I didn't recognize that I wanted to ask you about, Stephanie. Did we ever, I know this is state law is now, the state house, they're worrying about this now, but is this something that we discussed last year at all? Or that do you know anything about?
Which exactly? Sorry,
The
I'm trying to follow you.
Sorry, the battery energy storage bylaw?
Oh, so the new solar regulations, smart regulations have come out, and they have a model solar bylaw and a
Okay.
model BESS bylaw. And the town council had referred the solar bylaw to the CRC. And even though there was a draft of a BESS bylaw developed by the former planning director, but that was never reviewed by the town council, nor was it officially referred to the CRC. But it will be something that will be coming just because of its being directly attached to the to the new regulations. It's really in the town's benefit to have one. So I think that's going to be another bylaw that will be being developed in the next year.
So that'll probably stay, and we should probably talk a little more about that sometime. It doesn't have to be right now, just about what that entails. The other thing that I just wanted to point out that I noticed was in here that I still would really, that I think still has not been done and that I really feel ought to be, is, we have a transportation plan that was never approved and that is still incomplete as far as I know. And I think that is a real problem for the town insofar as, encouraging clean transportation. It's still, every year I say the same thing. I have stopped, at this point, I've almost stopped riding my bike to and from anywhere from my house because Pelham Road has gotten so bad that I feel like I'm going to die every time I'm on it. So I usually use my car to take my bike out of the neighborhood. Not always. And I don't mind going the other way on Pelham Road up toward the Quabbin, but heading toward Southeast Street, it's a disaster. And there is not a plan. I mean, there is a plan that is not complete. Even if it takes some time to finish it, I think this is something we really need to ask them to do, is finish that plan. So are there other, and the waste hauler bylaw is also here, solar bylaw is still there. Are there other things that folks are thinking about that, as we write this report, as I mostly write the report, but as we write the report and as we come up with these town manager goals, are there things that people want to make sure is included?
These are things that we've done in this past, right? We're reporting on our past activities for the most part.
Two things. The annual report is reporting on past activities. The town manager goal suggestions comes from what comes next. So that's what I'm asking about now is what should we be focused on, or is it premature to talk about that until we have the new? I mean, like I said, I don't think the new plan is going to look a lot different from the last. It's going to be updated for things that happened in the last year.
I think it's premature, but I have some vague ideas about what ECAC could do to help promote the town achieving sort of better renewable energy and carbon reduction goals across town. And that some of that dovetails with the new regulations on solar development, and some of that would dovetail on community solar that we're going to be exploring more. But sort of, try to find a way to bring back to the front thinking is like, how are we going to continue emission reductions? And how are we going to continue to source increasingly green electricity, and what can Amherst do in that endeavor?
Steve, wondering if you would be willing to meet with me outside of the meeting to sort of have a discussion about this, to sort of maybe formulate something more cohesive.
Yes,
I have thoughts about
wonderful.
things that I'm doing too, but it would be great to sort of coordinate and then bring something together.
Yeah, I would love to do that. Let's
The next meeting.
Okay, great.
That would be great. And maybe put that on the agenda for the next meeting.
Yeah, I should be able to meet with you in the next week or two. We can try out those nice new benches in the town common area out in front of town hall if we do it soon enough.
That would be great.
All right, I'm just putting that in my own notes as well as just popping it in the bottom here.
Will you follow up, Stephanie, with a suggestion of some times? Okay.
Yes, I was already thinking in my mind of a few. So
great.
Okay, cool. Any other comments, suggestions? If not, what I'll do, Stephanie, is at our next meeting, which I think I may need to change the time of. We need to, I'll get back to you right afterwards. But our next meeting, we should go through, what goals are reasonable, what you think is important for the next year. And also update the report. And then when I have a draft, hopefully in the next 2 weeks, hopefully right before the next meeting, a few days before, I will send out a draft for discussion. It won't look terribly different than this, but it will be updated, I think is the. Right. Discussion, input. Okay, then next time. All right. I will. Is this still being shared? Did I share this? Did I not
No
share
longer
this?
being shared. I don't know
Oh.
that you shared it.
Oh, that was, I'm sorry. I was scrolling through it, talking about it, and not, no wonder you couldn't follow Steve. I was like, let me share this quickly just to make sure everybody has seen it. I thought I had shared it. So this is you should all have a copy of it, right? This is the plan from last year, or the report from last year. And boy, what I was saying probably made no sense. I was sitting there pointing to stuff. No wonder someone should have said, you're not sharing anything. All right, so what I was trying to point out is that these are the 5 things that our charge asks us to report on. And at the same time, one of them is progress toward climate action goals, and those are really spelled out in the CARP. So, the first 2 pages are just, the first 3 paragraphs are just boilerplate. Then there's the reporting on the 5 things we're supposed to report on, which is pretty short, just a bunch of bullets. Then there's really the first thing we're supposed to report on is progress toward climate goals, and that's taken from the CARP. So when I was talking about, there's a pretty, this thing at the bottom, pretty roadmap to 2025. So we have to next year use a different, I should put a different one in here for next year. There's each of these strategies, but each of those strategies has specific tactics listed under it. So for example, under renewable energy, transform local energy through community choice aggregation, there's a bunch of strategies to do that. And then our status is here. So that's just going to get updated. And then at the bottom of the report, I also tacked on the town manager goals, suggestions for goals that got condensed down into this smaller thing. I'm sorry, my discussion must not have made much sense, but I will do it next week. I won't belabor this anymore today. Maybe I'll put slides together next week so I can't make that mistake again. All right, should we move on? Okay. I'm sorry. Where are we now? And report review. Okay, Steve, you're on next, I think. More updates on the DOER clean energy siting and permitting regulations.
Okay. I gave an update last meeting, and I don't have a huge new amount of things to say, a little bit. For background, in case you weren't listening last time, the DOER has come up with a new set of a new whole sort of paradigm for how solar projects will be approved. Well, clean renewable energy projects, solar projects being one of those, and probably most relevant to us in Western Massachusetts. But it also includes anaerobic digestion, wind power, and some grid transmission projects. But mostly, I think we're interested in the solar aspects of it. The overall concept is that they have created something that's somewhat similar to the wetlands, the way the Wetlands Act is administered, and that's where the state has created standardized forms and something of a standardized set of guidelines for how wetland related projects get approved, but that approval is still done at the local level. And so that would be the case for solar projects for the vast majority of solar projects. Super huge solar projects over 20, or renewable energy projects over 25 megawatts would still go to a statewide energy siting board. I don't even know if there is any in Massachusetts that are 25 megawatts or greater. And then the very, very small ones, like less than 1 acre, are exempt from most of these regulations. The main thing is there'll be a sort of a set type of application process. Towns will have 1 year, 12 months to review the application and issue a consolidated permit. The town can have multiple bodies within the town review it, so it can be reviewed by Conservation Commission and zoning board and that sort of thing. But at the end, they will have to issue one permit within 12 months, or deny it within 12 months, have to issue a decision within 12 months. If they don't act on it within 12 months, then it will get automatic approval and be subject to a set of conditions that are being developed by the DOER. There is an appeal process. Either the developer or impacted parties can appeal. So that's the framework. It's rolled out just this month. I think the first few drafts came out earlier early October. So it's kind of been a whirlwind. And what makes it a little bit confusing, or maybe a lot of bit confusing, is that there's one document that's the new law that outlines this process, but it represents a bunch of different, oops, I'm looking for my right document here, a bunch of different guidelines that have also just been released in this month. And these are guidelines, oh goodness, stand by, I lost that page. There it is. The guidelines, there's like 5 or 6 guidelines. There's guidelines for pre-filing stakeholder engagement, where an organization proposing a clean energy development will have to engage with stakeholders before they actually file their formal application with a town or city. There are guidelines on public health, safety, and environmental standards, guidelines on minimization and mitigation measures. Then there's the one that catches my interest is site suitability assessment guidelines. And so this is a way that projects will get a score based on their suitability that includes things like impact on carbon storage and carbon sequestration and other impacts on the community. So all of these came out. There's been several different public sessions where they've presented these. There's been some Q&A, and they've been taking public comment, although I think public comment on some of these just ended a few days ago. They're going to go back with all the input they've gotten and work them over again, since they're all draft regulations, and they hope to come out in winter or early spring with the revised and final set of guidelines. And I think their target is, at least the target in the law, finalized regs should be completed in March 2026. And then the program will phase in starting, I think it's December 1st, 2026, with a period of time where applicants or towns could use the new methodology or continue to use the old methodology for, I don't know, a few months, and then they'll have to shift over to the new methodology. So there's a lot. It's in, as I said, it's sort of the kind of the key things are scattered in these different guidelines that are all in draft state. So a lot could change depending on feedback that both DOER gets, and also the scoring system that I mentioned that was put out by the EEAE, Executive Affairs Office. So slightly different office out there. Oh, and then I should say, just recently, the DOER also released 2 model bylaws, and I think these were what Stephanie was mentioning earlier. A model solar bylaw updates one that I think that they developed like 15 years ago, and then also a model battery energy storage system bylaw. Those are models, and towns are not obligated to adopt them. However, they mentioned that the DOER reps said that if towns adopt these model bylaws, those bylaws will be presumed to be compliant with state laws in terms of zoning, and also the state laws that limit the amount of regulations that local municipalities can put on solar developments. That refers to the Dover Amendment, if you're familiar with that. So there's kind of a lot, and it's a lot to understand all at once this month. It's also a little bit challenging because quite a bit of it could change as they go back and revise these things. And so we'll be interesting to see how things play out over the winter, and then how the revised guidelines come out in March of 2026. Questions from folks on aspects of the process? And Stephanie has a comment or a question.
I just have a quick comment that they are receiving comments until November 14th. So there is an ability to get some comment in. And my concern, I sort of asked this question at the last public session, and one of the town council members interpreted my question for me, unfortunately, not quite accurately, because my concern is more that local bylaws are going to be important in terms of areas that are not necessarily covered in the state bylaw. So for instance, especially in a town like Amherst, private wells. So that's something that our bylaw can cover. My concern was if a project gets a favorable suitability citing rating for a project, and there's an issue with a local bylaw that has to do with our area of concern, sort of what happens in that process. Like, I find it a little confusing in terms of if we have a different site suitability analysis or rating because of our bylaw. And if for some reason 12 months go by and our permitting process hasn't been able to move the project forward, there's an automatic approval after 12 months, constructive approval that happens at the state level. They just issue a permit. So then what happens to our, our priorities and our concern under our bylaw? So that was kind of the question I had, which I did actually have an opportunity to ask Allison Gage at a separate meeting that happened for municipal folks. And basically she said, that's a good question. She said she didn't have an answer for it either, because it is so complicated and so multifaceted. I mean, it's great that the state is doing this, but at the same time, it's just so really complicated. Like, all of the guidelines that are associated with this, you have to make sure that you're, knowledgeable about, as well as the regulations themselves. I think it's just a lot to digest. And I think Amherst will be fine. The smaller communities are where it's more of a concern.
Yeah, it's a lot to digest. It's a moving target. I think some of these different guidelines are not necessarily consistent with each other because they've been written as separate documents, and you go to start comparing. It's like, oh wait, this one says this, but this other one says something slightly different. Yep. And then there are potentially holes, like Stephanie mentioned. And one of the holes that I raised was that often a developer, there'll be a give and take during the permitting process in a town, and in response to, say, Conservation Commission concerns, a developer might say, all right, we'll change the boundaries of our project. We'll move it away from here or make it smaller. And I don't see any accommodations for that. It looks like once a project is submitted, it gets scored, and then it needs to be approved or disapproved based on that scoring, at least in part. And when I asked that question, the facilitator said, yeah, that's a good question. We'll have to think about that. I'd be surprised if this actually gets implemented on the actual schedule that they're hoping for, meaning that it will actually go into effect on December 1st of 2026. I'd be surprised. I suspect it's going to take some more time, and there'll be some extensions on that deadline. But
my understanding is that they have to be promulgated in March of 26.
That's right. Yeah, that's what based on the 2024 statewide law that was passed, the Clean Energy Infrastructure Law, whatever it's called. That's the schedule that's So DOER is working against that schedule. Still, I'll be surprised if they meet it.
I would be too.
So,
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, the concern I had just glancing at all of this was, is this going to make citing easier or harder?
That's a good question. And just today, I've been trying to go through these citing guidelines. And what they're trying to do is there's like 5 different categories. There's development potential. So under that one, it strongly favors developed land. And if land is not developed, it automatically gets a bunch of demerits or points that'll count against it. Under climate change resilience, that's whether or not it's like in a flood prone area, a river or coastal flooding hazard. And then there's carbon storage and sequestration. It gets points based on how much carbon storage potential would be, I guess, disrupted by the development. So, the worst case would be a forest being cut down for solar, and that forest both had a lot of carbon storage in the soil and in the tree biomass, and also had a lot of annual sequestration. So the rate of sequestration was great. So then there's biodiversity concerns, issues, or scoring. And in all of these cases, they're trying to use existing GIS maps that have the databases where these can be scored sort of in a numerical way without a lot of judgment. Some of these criteria still have to be developed, but so biodiversity criteria, it's going to be scored based on like the biomap habitat and the critical natural landscape habitat, things that are already in the Mass GIS system. And so depending on how much of the project is on lands that are already categorized as biomap or critical natural landscapes, they'll get a different score. So in theory, one would just have to go to a GIS system and draw, parcel boundary or boundary where the project is, and these scores would be automatically calculated based on these data sets that already exist. I think we're a long way from that being that quite direct. And some of these different data sets are perhaps more robust than others. Yeah, so it'll be interesting. And then issues like Stephanie mentioned, I haven't seen something like setbacks from private wells. There are rules that relate to that, and public water supplies for sure. I haven't seen any additional criteria in these guidelines about that. I think my sense is towns would be allowed to add criteria that are not in the guidelines, as long as they're consistent with the Dover Amendment, which the Dover Amendment sort of prevents undue regulation of solar facilities unless it's necessary for health, welfare, and safety of the town. And so there's a lot of discussion and debate over what counts as health, safety, and welfare. But I think protecting water supplies falls under that health, safety, welfare provision that allows towns to regulate the location of solar facilities. So yeah, kind of a lot to play out in the next bunch of months.
Yeah, and the thing that always bugs me the most is, a lot of the forests in Massachusetts, I think something like 3/4 of them are privately owned. And I believe most of those are logged on a regular basis. Coles alone owns something like 6,000 acres. They just sold 3,000 to some other family. So how does forested land that is harvested every 40 to 60 years or something like that anyway, play into this? Is it considered, I'm assuming it's considered forest and not developed and evaluated as such? Or if it's private land, does it not matter because it's your land and you can do what you want on it? I don't quite understand how these, I assume that's not true. The last thing I said is probably not true.
Yeah, the private land doesn't matter. All of these things get scored whether
regulations.
it's private land or not. I happen to have some of these systems open, like the carbon. I don't know that they make a distinction on actively sort of forest managed lands. I think that's going to, yeah, be judged on its carbon storage potential. Its total ecosystem carbon potential. And they use like a 50-year timeline for that. And I need to, I can see the map that they've provided, but I need to go deeper and find the methodology for how this was assessed, because it's not easy to assess carbon in the soil, carbon in the above ground biomass, and then in addition to that, the rates of carbon sequestration on an annual basis.
Yeah.
And
And
my
so you-
guess is that those things were put together by that reporting that was recently released like a year or so ago.
Yes.
I forget which group had helped out with that.
Oh,
Was it Mass Audubon? Mass Audubon.
Mass Audubon's been involved in
think
that.
Yeah.
Harvard Forest
worked on
has
that.
been involved in that. There's been other studies that have been involved. That Nature Conservancy has been
Yeah, but
involved in that.
they need to be talking to the forestry department because to the government departments and not the. I worry about that because there is a big difference between the carbon storage capacity of forested land and preserved land, conserved land. I would never want to see conserved land turned into a solar array, but forested land is another story.
Yep. And it's a challenging because some of these lands that are actively managed for forest, they're on a 50-year cycle. So they might be sort of in, left fallow for 40 years and then they're cut extensively.
There's a study done by, I think it's the federal forestry. I'm not sure. One of my neighbors showed me once a little pamphlet that basically shows that forest doesn't really regain. It's different for different forests. It's different for everything. But the general rule that they use is that a forest doesn't regain its carbon storage, its real carbon storage capabilities until about 60 years after, undisturbed for 60 years. It begins to be a really good carbon sink. Up until that point, it's smaller trees. It's just not, it's the big trees that are the carbon sink, right? It's the big old trees and the forest floor and the undergrowth and all the stuff that collects on the forest floor. That's all where all that carbon is.
Yeah, I think that's an area of ongoing research, and I've heard very different stories. The traditional view is that, yes, forests that are between 50 and 100 years old are the fastest growing, and therefore their rate of carbon storage per year is the greatest.
Right.
Older growth forest over 100 years can store a lot of carbon, but they may not be increasing that as much on a per year basis. But there's a newer group of folks who are arguing that these older growth storage forests also sequester at a high rate. And I haven't seen the clear evidence for that yet. And it's just plain hard to measure the carbon content of soils because the forest soils are they're so diverse. It varies so much from place to place. And Harvard Forest has got some study plots where they've been doing this for 50 years, which gives some good data, and it's relevant to Massachusetts. And there's a few other places around North America that do that. So it gets complicated.
Yep.
Overall, the goal is to try to steer solar developments to developed land and land that has lower potential for carbon storage, but also lower value for ecosystems and lower values for other uses. My hope is that this doesn't result in that there's only a half dozen places where large scale solar can be built, and then we just aren't able to build out our renewable energy that's in our statewide goal.
Yeah.
And when electricity becomes short, then we just turn around and start building more fossil fuel power plants to make up the difference.
Right.
And we'll get nuclear power in a couple of decades as well if we don't come up with better solutions.
Yeah. All right.
So that's a lot. Anybody wants to learn more, have some specific details, feel free to reach out to me and I'll try to respond. And Stephanie, I did watch the CRC meeting that met earlier this month, and they were just grappling with what the heck are we going to do with our town solar bylaw that they've been working on for now 3 or 4 years, maybe, in face of these new model bylaws and everything else. And I believe that at least one of the members on the CRC is going to take a deep dive into these new regulations and then sort of report back onto what they suggest that the town do as far as continuing to develop the town solar bylaw. And I was going to offer to reach out to the CRC member, I think it's Councilor Haneke, to see if I could help wade through all these documents and sort them out, if that would be useful.
I think the strategy was to take this model solar bylaw, not to go through all of the regulations, because they're only focusing on the solar bylaw. So they're going to take the
Yeah.
model solar bylaw with the town's draft bylaw and sort through that and try to meld those together so that
Okay.
they're consistent. They're not trying to go through the regulations and sort all that out.
Yeah. I think they're going to find that the town solar bylaw has a lot of elements in it that aren't covered in the model bylaw, because those elements are covered in these draft guidelines that are just been issued. So things like the town was trying to figure out, how to regulate solar developments on agricultural lands. Well, there's a new guideline for that. It's not part of the solar model solar bylaw.
I think Mandy Jo is pretty versed in
Yes.
this kind of thing. So I'm quite confident that she will be reviewing those as well. She's a quick study and she's very thorough.
Okay.
I know that they have a meeting tomorrow. It will not be on the agenda tomorrow
Right.
because it won't be ready. It's targeted for the following meeting in another 2 weeks. I'm somewhat doubtful it will be ready even by then, but
Yeah.
the council has an election coming up, and so they're really struggling to try to get through things before the end of the year.
Will there be a new CRC established after in
Yes,
2026?
correct.
Okay.
It may be the same members. It really depends. But typically, that all gets worked out when they have their new membership and they decide who wants to do what. Sometimes
Okay.
people who are on the committee want to do something different. So,
Yeah.
so I think that's why they're sort of pushing to try to see what they can do to get this done before then.
Would it be okay if I contacted Mandy Jo and asked if she wanted any of my help?
I think it's fine to reach out and ask. I don't know. I half wondered about working on it with her myself, but decided that potentially it was better to let her do her thing she's working with another, not officially, but there is another CRC member who wants
Yeah.
to work with her on it. So I think they are going to work on it as a team. So,
Okay.
I think maybe perhaps just ask, but also unless you have something specific to offer, it's a process and I don't
Yeah.
know that that's going to particularly help at this stage. I think
Okay.
the information about once they maybe get the draft together and looking that over and helping at that point if there are holes that you see.
I think it's important to let them know that Steve, that you're willing to do that. That was actually in one of the goal suggestions last year, that the town draw on ECAC more for stuff like that, draw on expertise more for stuff like that. So, and particularly around the solar bylaw. So I think it would
But
be fine to
remember that
reach out.
you're also appointed by the town manager. So who you're supposed to report to and ask. Really, it's more that you should be checking in with the town manager to see if that's really okay. I know I don't have a problem with it. I'm just saying that there is, technically there is sort of there's a process, if you will, and I know it's maybe frustrating at times, but there are reasons why. So I just want to always keep you mindful that outreach should really be to the town manager because he appoints you, they don't. So your guidance is your suggestions and the things that you are offering are really to him. So if you have things you want to recommend, the recommendations should really go through the town manager and to him first before you sort of offered them to the council.
But
Yeah,
the
at this
CRC
point,
also-
Yeah,
CRC is also-
personally, I don't have any recommendations on this process. I'm still trying to understand it. And I would actually love to sit down with somebody who is also trying to get into the weeds with it and sort of work through and come to a collective understanding of what this new process looks like.
Well, I
Um,
am your town sustainability director, so I would be more than happy to do that with you
Okay,
because I
great.
am feeling quite overwhelmed
all-
myself. So I
Yes.
think, you know, when we meet,
right.
let's talk about that.
As well. Good. Okay.
All right. With that, shall we move on? I think the rest is going to be quick. We have education and outreach.
I just had a quick question.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Lori. Steve, these siting regulations and permitting regulations, locally, they're administered through the ZBA or the planning board? Which town
Well,
board?
the new law envisions each community will appoint, I forget the phrasing that they use, but a person that will be the point person that will any project proposal will still be reviewed by Concom, ZBA, whatnot. And they will each make a recommendation, and then this point person or point committee will make the final recommendation. And so each community will have to decide who will be that lead person to finalize a town's decision. So that'll be kind of a new component of town governance.
Yeah.
And yeah, and as you can imagine, the smaller towns that are, you know, all volunteers are sort of complaining that there's a great burden on them. The DOER will be providing, as I mentioned last time, these circuit riders, so experts that will be able to consult with the town. And I believe too, there's a provision where towns can collect fees from the project applicant, and those fees can be used to hire experts and consultants to help the town with some of the judgments and fact finding and determinations.
I mean, that happens already in Concom, where
Exactly.
they'll make applicants pay for an independent engineer to take a look at, you know, stormwater or other plans. Yeah.
Yeah, when I heard them present that sort of analogy, that this is be kind of analogous to the way Concom decisions are made, it's like, okay, yeah, that makes some sense. And it gave it a little bit more of a cohesive model in my brain, as opposed to something that's totally new. So there are some elements that should be familiar to towns that have an active Concom.
Okay. Move on. All right, so item 8 is education and outreach. Don, anything new with PACE?
No.
Okay, Tony is not here, so we don't have any coordination with local groups information. I've got nothing new on heat pumps, unless Stephanie, you have something?
I do not have anything new.
And we already talked about the education series earlier, so that takes us to item 9, which is advisory and support. UMass climate plan. So I can do this as a member update, or I can do it here. I'll just say that I did finally get kicked off of the decarbonization subcommittee this week. The excuse being given is that I have retired, but that's a little absurd and nobody on the committee believes it, except for those reporting on it. I think I was kicked off because I am holding them to a higher standard than some of the other members on the committee. I've been doing a lot of the work of the independent committee members. And by that, I mean, the committee is sort of half, no, not even half. There are 3 independent faculty members on it. There's 2 faculty members who are sort of under the thumb of the chancellor in different ways. And then there's staff, you know, including the sustainability director. So there really hasn't been a lot of outside input into this committee, except from me and one of the other 3 faculty members. There's 3 of us total. One has been mostly quiet. I suspect because he's an assistant professor. One who doesn't have tenure yet. One is almost as vocal as I am, but not retired. And then there's me who's retired. So they use my retirement as an excuse, but I'm still on the faculty senate. I'm still allowed to serve on Senate committees. This is the chancellor's committee, so they have the right to throw me off, but it's a little odd that it's coming now 4 months after I retired. 5 months after I retired, 6 months, actually, April 20, when was it? It was May 22nd. So it's been a while. So I'm still going to remain, the group of faculty that are on the committee, we're all still meeting, including me, and I'm getting updates from them and continuing to have input in different ways. There hasn't been a lot of change. It's just interesting to compare and contrast how they do business with how ECAC does business. I mean, their sustainability, there's no requirement for them to do public meetings. There's no requirement for them to post minutes. They post notes, but they don't vote on the notes. So they often omit important things. It's a very different scene. It's interesting that, to me, that a big university that gets so much money from the state can operate in quite such a secretive way. They will be burning something called True Burn, which doesn't sell itself as renewable diesel, but is essentially renewable diesel this winter. It's locally made by, I can't think of it. There's another company involved. Anyway, True Burn is the product. They claim it's made locally from waste oil. They supply other universities with renewable diesel. And if you take a look at the numbers, it's plausible that they're using waste oil. They claim to be using it from fast food chains. They would have to be almost a monopoly, I think, on used oil from fast food chains in the Northeast to be able to produce as much as they claim to produce. So it's not impossible that they're doing what they say they're doing, but they're also then taking all of this used oil off the market, and it had been used in animal feeds and in cosmetics and other products. So, and it's also, of course, increasing the demand for this product worldwide, which is a problem. So things are continuing. I'll continue to report what I know, but I'm no longer on the decarbonization subcommittee. That's my UMass climate plan update. Questions, comments? If not, the next thing on the agenda was the draft solar bylaw, but did we have anything else to talk about there, Steve? Or did we cover that?
Well, I don't think I have anything else. I've bored you all to death with that.
Transportation is Tony's thing. He's not here today. And I don't have any other regional or state policy updates. The climate bank thing is still going. There's still no date for a hearing. So I'm not sure where that is at this point. I know there's still no date for a hearing. And I think they're still trying to decide how to include it, where to include it, if to include it in this year's set of bills. It's its own bill, but there's discussion, I guess, of including it in the bond bill, which is called Make Ready or something like that, the Make Massachusetts Ready for Climate Change bill. So that's all I got. Anything else under advisory and support? Anyone wants to?
Do you have a question?
Yeah.
I don't know if this is covered under the transportation bullet point, or I'm looking at bullet points because I'm writing the meetings. The minutes. When I first talked to you all during my interview, I think you asked, like, what would I be passionate about working on? And I had talked about, my family bike, so something to do with making biking safer around here. So how do I, is this an offline conversation? How do I kind of get started on this?
Well, what you could do, since I don't think Tony has been attending, one thing that I would love to see is somebody attending the Transportation Advisory Committee meetings and then reporting back to us here and giving us somebody to give input to them, giving us someone who attends those meetings and funnels information back and forth. Because I'm often wondering, I just don't have the bandwidth to do it. And I know Tony was also interested in it, which is why his name is on the agenda there, but it need not be. It could be you if you're interested, Emily. But as far as I know, there is this we have somewhere in our packet in the last year or so, we have the incomplete transportation plan for Amherst. And the last I knew, it was waiting on the construction of the new school. They were going to do a bunch of changes to the roads then. They did do some work this summer to make some of the roads a little more bike friendly. But that is a big sticking point in my mind, and a big point of frustration for a lot of people, I think, in the town that I know have worked on this and felt like they've gotten nowhere. So if we have a way to make that happen, if there's something we can do to encourage the town, even if it's just keeping an eye on it and piping up once in a while, I think it would be great to have more input on that.
Okay.
So,
Thank you. I can look into that.
Stephanie, do you know when the TAC meetings are?
I don't, but they should easily be found on the town's website under boards and committees.
Okay.
Hopefully they're meeting regularly.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't really heard much about them meeting lately, but I just haven't heard, but that doesn't mean they're not.
Yeah, I would dearly love to see more bike paths, better bike paths, or roads that are friendlier.
Yeah, I was gonna say too, I know some of the, I think some of the work, involves the planning department as well, and we've been without a planning director for quite some time. So, I mean, that's potentially slowed things down as well. So I raised my hand to say that earlier, but we'd moved on. So
Sorry.
just, that's okay. Just so, just as an awareness of like, one of the things that might also be slowing it down a bit. I don't know for sure, but that could potentially be something that slowed it down.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'll report back what I figure
That
out
would
next
be
time.
That would be great, Emily. Okay, so we're on to staff updates then.
Sure. So a few things I wanted to cover just that it came up earlier, but I am going to be pursuing another fellow for summer of 26 to do a greenhouse gas emissions inventory. And then post that, maybe the following year, we'd want to be looking at updating the climate action plan, the CARP, potentially. So sort of take a look at that first, the inventory first. So that's coming up. I'm kind of in the season of reporting and reports. It just feels like endless. Right now, I've been reporting on data quarterly on the 2 EV charging station, the fast charge stations behind CVS. They want quarterly data, which is proving to be very data heavy and needs to be sorted. And so I've been working on that. So that's happening right now. Also, Green Communities annual reporting is due in the next couple of weeks, working on that as well. So some of those things are keeping me hopping for the next, I would say the next month. I'm really like fully immersed in all of that stuff. So not able to really do much else. Because there's other things that I have to sort of grant funding and grants that we've had that I need to sort of follow up on and check in about. And so there's just a bunch of that kind of thing going on right now. So all that's to say is that I'm not really focused on doing any grant applications at the moment. We are not applying for Green Communities right now, but I think that's really fine because we will be applying hopefully for a climate leader community funding for technical assistance. And with Green Communities funding, I feel a little bit sort of protective of what we go for because I think we want to be strategic in our ask, especially while we try to decarbonize buildings as we start trying to move that forward a little more. So I think possibly in the spring we'll be looking to maybe have a Green Communities application, but we're just skipping this round just in case anyone asks. We're not ignoring it. We're not doing nothing. We're just busy doing other things. So that's it. I don't really have anything else at the moment.
All right, any ECAC member updates? Items for the next agenda. I say one thing we should do is add Emily's name to the transportation bullet under advisory and support. And see if maybe Tony, if he's going to work on local stuff, maybe he even wants to be taken off that. I don't think he's gone to a TAC meeting in a while. And hopefully Tony will be there. We can do Elevate planning, discussion planning for that Elevate event. I can't think of anything new or different. Anything new on the agenda that we haven't thought of? Not. It's good to have a slightly thinner agenda during the holidays anyway, so. If not, then let's see if there's any, do we have any public? No, so no public comment. And in that case, we need to move to adjourn. Don't forget to go outside and look for the comet if it's finally cleared up. May not have.
Where do we look for the comet?
Supposed to be down and to the left of the Big Dipper.
I think it's like towards the south, sort of near the horizon, unfortunately.
Yes.
This might be hard to see.
Yeah, so right. Yeah, I think that sounds the south or to the west-ish.
Heard west,
would-
but
West, I think.
maybe it's
I
southwest.
see.
But
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
under the Big Dipper.
someone I know said Hickory Ridge might be a good place to see over the trees, if you can get yourselves there.
So we have moved to adjourn and go comet watching.
I move to adjourn.
I'll second.
All right, see y'all in 2 weeks.
Thank
Bye.
you all so
Good night.
much. Good night.
Bye.